The Army Painter Speedpaint Starter Set released this week. We now know the official date for Free RPG Day, and Games Workshop revealed a map. This and more in this week's Hobby News. I'm Angela, you're watching Hobby Night. Now let's get to it. Rejoice, hobbyists, for the Army Painter Speedpaint Starter Set is officially out this weekend, and now you can get your hands on it and give the paints a shot for yourself. If you've been interested in the speed paints, or you've been looking for an alternative to contrast that's a little bit cheaper, I would highly recommend trying out the starter set because it's got a great range of colors in there. There's 10 colors to be specific, all of which I used a lot during my own experimentation, and it does include Pallid Bone and Gravelord Grey, which I used in every single tutorial I did and every time that I've used the paint so far, so I think they're pretty solid. I would highly recommend them. We also learned this week the official dates for Free RPG Day, because it's going to have two separate dates, one for North America, which is going to return to the June 25th date, which it originally founded on, because last year it was in the fall, and that was a little bit weird for folks. I think some people didn't realize it was happening during that time, and they ended up missing it entirely, so it is returning to its original 25th date. However, for the rest of the world, it's coming in at July 23rd. The reason for the split is to give event organizers more time to get their stuff together, which I assume means that they're concerned about shipping delays still, and they're wanting to make sure that other countries can get their stuff shipped to them in a timely manner and not have it miss out for the participants. We also now know who is actually participating in Free RPG Day this year, and it's a pretty long list. I'm actually pretty excited for this, so let's go over it real quick. We've got 9th Level Game, Catalyst Game Labs, CMON, Dave Taylor Miniatures, Darrington Press, Goodman Games, Infinite Black, Loke Mats, which is a Battlemat place, Loke Battlemats, sorry, I mispronounced that slightly, which is a battle mat, which I'm very curious about because I don't know what they're going to be giving out for a Free RPG Day.
Dungeons and Dragons, like foldable?
Maybe character mats, maybe? I'm very curious to see what it is, so I'm actually very intrigued by that one. We've also got Magpie Games, Mantic, Paizo, Privateer Press, Q Workshop, Talsorian Games, Renegade Game Studio, which I love their board games. I've never tried any of their RPGs, but I hear they're delightful. And we've got Steamforged Games, and of course, WizKids. So it's a pretty big lineup. There's probably going to be something out there for you to try or explore that's new, and Free RPG Day is a great way to do that. Moving over to Warhammer, over on the Warhammer community site, we got a grand reveal.
I'm so hyped! I love the old world of fantasy. They've been hyping that they have this big announcement. It's going to be tied to Total War Warhammer 3, and it's going to be great. We're going to see Carl Franz.
Oh, yeah! Yeah!
Because it's supposed to be a few hundred years in the past, right? But
they're
going to have some like awesome bear miniatures, and they're going to maybe show us like some Cathay miniatures.
I really hate to disappoint you. I really hate to disappoint you.
What do you mean? Was it just spearmen or something?
No, it was more lame than that. It was a map. They showed us a beautiful, wonderfully illustrated map of Grand Cathay the day after the Total War Warhammer 3 game released, which means that everybody who wanted to see Grand Cathay in all of its glory and on the map got to, because the game was out. It was really silly to me, and honestly...
Damn it!
I know. I don't understand. I do not understand the logic of this announcement or why they just chose to show an illustration of a map. Like, it's cool, but it has me feeling kind of lame about it because it's fine. It's fine. It also does remind me that I am probably not going to be as hyped for the Old World return as I originally felt like I was going to be. They did mention when the Old World was originally announced to be coming back that they were going to be setting it in a different time period, and we all kind of had assumed at the time that it was going to tie to Total War Warhammer 3. Sorry, I said that like way too fast. But now I think we have a bit more confirmation seeing the map from Cathay. Kislev was also really initially hyped up about it and coming back in it. And again, Kislev is a huge part of the Total War Warhammer 3 franchise. So it's going to be cool to see this new era of Old World, but it does make me really sad because I actually I wanted Tomb Kings and Vampire Counts and the Empire and Bretonnia and all of the Old World that I knew back from old Warhammer Fantasy to be coming back, and now I'm afraid it's more so going to be the new factions that we're seeing in Total War Warhammer 3, maybe a little bit more emphasis on the ogres, which are cool because I don't feel like they really got that much emphasis, but did at least have some older models. But then it's also going to be probably a lot of demons, which means we may not be getting anything new, because the demons have always been interchangeable amongst all of Games Workshop's IPs. They've always been available in Warhammer Fantasy Original, Warhammer 40k, Age of Sigmar, and now they're probably just going to bring them back and make those same exact units usable in this new relaunch of Old World. And that's kind of boring. Like, I don't want just bears and dragons.
I want to see Bretonians.
I want to see knights back. I want to see Tomb Kings. For God's sake, give me the freaking Tomb Kings back. I want my mummy boys. It's that time of the video where I interrupt to tell you about my Patreon and to let you know that we just added a Discord server which all tiers get access to. So if you're wanting a way to chat with me, share with me your projects, or just tell me what board games you're playing, definitely make sure to check the link below and check out my Patreon.
Oh, glorious day, the God Emperor has blessed his subjects with his presence.
Indeed he has, because Henry Cavill has made his way to Warhammer World and actually got to visit the place and hang out with the staff and do some cool stuff. And frankly, I'm really jealous, but I'm also incredibly pleased to see the community so hyped and rejoicing over something so silly and simple as a man going to a building. Now, this is great news, honestly, because there's been a lot of negativity around Games Workshop recently, especially with those price hikes, so it is cool to just see all of the fans come together and go, woo, Henry Cavill's there! We can all have a great time enjoying it. The final thing to cover in the news this week is a slew of new Eldar updates, this time focusing entirely on the infantry, as well as a little bit of terrain. So let's jump straight into it, starting with the Guardians. They, much like the rest of the Eldari, are getting a little bit of a speed buff with a movement of 7 now. They also have a 4-up save rather than a previous 5-up save, which is nice to see. The Shuriken Catapult continues to be improved. It has a longer range now, 18 inches, and it's -1 AP going forward, which, if you remember, in combination with the new Shuriken ability, can become a -3 AP to help you take out some of the bigger tanks and stuff on the field, even with your little Guardians, which is very, very nice. The Serpent Shield also is seeing a buff. It's giving your Guardians a 5-up invulnerable save, which is nice, and it allows them to ignore unmodified wound rolls of 1 or 2 if they're within a certain range of it. Plus, both the Defenders and Stormblades now have abilities that allow them to reroll 1s on the hit rolls if they're within a certain range of a objective point on the board, which is also quite lovely. We also got a look at some of the Aspect Warriors. They got a little bit of a spotlight as well, and some of the big ones that were talked about were the fact that they all have a 5-up invulnerable save now because of their armor, plus the Avenger Shuriken Catapult, much like its smaller counterpart, is also 18 inches and has a -2 AP now, which can go up to AP -5, which is pretty spicy. Speaking of spicy, we also need to talk about the Fire Dragons, because they are now toughness 4, they have a beefed up strength on their Dragon Fusion gun, and that gun now allows them to reroll wound rolls of a 1 when targeting vehicles or monsters. So if you're wanting something to help take out those monsters and vehicles on the board, the Fire Dragons might be the way to go. We also got to take a small look at the Warp Spiders and their weapon, the Death Spinner, which is now an adult. It's grown up. It was a small child before, it's grown up now. It's now an Assault D6 instead of a flat 2.
I like the idea that it actually fell to Slanesh and now they have an adult D6 weapon.
Yes, an adult D6 weapon. Oh my. I don't know how I actually feel about this. I am not a huge fan of D6 anything because I feel like it's a little bit too swingy in the game.
Does it have blast?
I don't think it did.
Ooh.
Yeah, I don't remember it having blast, and that's where my concern kind of comes from, because like D6 always feels way too swingy. It's one of the reasons that I am not massively a huge fan of the mortar for my Death Guard, because again, it's so all over the place with how many shots it gets. But
that does have blast.
It does. That does have blast, whereas this, I'm not sure if it does. It does have a -2 AP though, which it before had a a 0 AP, so that is also an improvement. Additionally, we got to take a little bit of a longer spotlight look at the Howling Banshees, which have me really excited because I just really like these models. I think they're pretty cool. The Banshee Mask ability has been updated. Targets can now Targets of a charge by units with this ability can now no longer fire Overwatch or set to defend, which is pretty cool. Additionally, it makes all enemy units within engagement range fight after all of your eligible units. So if you're Eldar and you want a way to sort of shut down and make some units fight last, the Howling Banshees might be a great way to do that. We also got to take a look at their Whirling Death ability, which or weapon, which adds 1 to attack wound rolls on the charge, as well as their ability Acrobatics, which allows them to charge even if they've advanced, and it gives them a -1 from attacks hit rolls. So they're pretty fast. You want to get them in there, hit hard, and then hopefully they'll just destroy everything, because it sounds like they're going to be hitting very, very hard. This is just a few of the Aspect Warriors that they previewed. More of them will be getting updates in the actual book once that releases. Now, the thing that I actually am really interested in and found the most fascinating about the Eldar releases this week, or information this week, is the information about the Webway Gate. Now, terrain features don't often get a lot of use in the game in my experience. Most players tend to avoid them because they're not super useful and they don't tend to work very well competitively, and I still don't think that the Webway Gate is going to be super valid competitive wise, but I find it interesting because this thing now allows you to get your reserve units actually within 9 inches of enemy units when they come in, as long as they're within the engagement range of the actual Webway Gate. As long as they're within that little cone that it provides and they deep strike in there, they actually can start in combat with things when they arrive and immediately make melee attacks, which is insane. That feels incredibly cinematically thematic, which I really, really like seeing in the game, and I wish there was more of it. Again, I don't actually think this is going to be used that much because I don't know how many people are going to actually want to bring the Webway Gate as a unit. However, the fact that you can actually just have them arrive through a Webway Gate, and if there's enemy units already there, they can just immediately jump into combat with them. That's fantastic, and I love it, and I want to see more of that down the line. All right, that has been it for this week in hobby news. There wasn't a huge amount of WoW news or anything like that, but that's because Total War Warhammer 3 came out, and we all should be playing that, which is exactly what I'm going to do after I'm done here. So, without further ado, let me go ahead and give a huge thank you to my patrons for allowing content like this to continue to be made. You guys are awesome. Thank you so much for supporting me over on Patreon. If you'd like to join them, you can find a link down in the description below. In the meantime, I have been Angela, you've been watching Hobby Night, and I'm going to go spread Grandfather Nurgle's love.